Hey guys, Dave Keller here with Market Misbehavior, going through the 7 things that I write at the end of my journal Salutations. I shot an earlier video where I showed an example from my notebook. This is the end of my daily journal entry. I've written the same thing at the end of my daily journal entries for a number of years. It's evolved over time, but I've settled into these 7 things a couple years ago and I've sort of stuck with it. You know, for me, journaling every morning, doing what is called the 3 pages, comes from a book called The Artist's Way. Basically, the idea is to have a good conversation with yourself, to unleash your creativity by getting all the baggage out of the way. And writing 3 pages in a notebook journal every day has been transformational for me in terms of having a much better, more focused mindset and helping to basically generate ideas of where I want to go, who I want to be, what I want to experience, how I want to go through life and all of those sorts of things. And at the end, I basically initially jotted down just a quick way to conclude my journal, but over time it's become sort of a mantra that I've repeated every day. So what we're going to do today is talk about the first thing I write at the end of my journal every day, which is RR number 6. This is actually a really important one to me, and it's something that I actually, any article that I write on stockcharts.com, on seeitmarket.com, on my own blog, marketmisbehavior.com, I always finish with the salutation RR number 6 and then Dave. And here's why. And the story I've heard in a number of different formats, and this is sort of my favorite version of it. There's a CEO in his office, and a friend of his, another CEO, is visiting him. They're sort of debating, matters of their companies and how they're facing challenges and all the different issues that they're going into. And as they're talking, one of the CEO, his office there, one of his lieutenants comes in and says, Bob, we've got a huge problem in the Midwest. XYZ is happening. Not sure how to handle it. He goes, whoa, Tony, remember rule number 6. And Tony goes, oh, you're right. Okay. And he turns around and walks out. It's kind of weird, but a couple minutes later, a woman walks in and says, huge issue. We have a problem with supplier. I'm struggling with that. How do we? They're really upset. Something, and trying to figure this out. And the CEO says, "Whoa, Cindy, remember rule number 6." And Cindy goes, "Okay, you're right," and walks out. Turns around. This happens a couple more times over the course of their meeting, where someone comes in with some issue, and all the CEO says is, "Remember rule number 6," and the person's immediately diffused. And so the other CEO, after a while, just has to figure out. He says, "What, Bob? What is this? What is this? Remember rule number 6?" And he says, and the CEO says, "Well, rule number 6 is, don't take yourself so goddamn seriously." And he goes, "Okay, well, what are the other 5 rules?" He says, "There aren't any." And so the point of the story is literally to not take yourself too seriously. And for me, I came across this story for the first time when it was a very stressful time in my life, and I was struggling to, really separate my work self and my personal self. A lot of times I would bring my work life home with me, and I would treat my family, my wife and my kids like, my employees, and I would be, dictating to them like I would at a meeting. And then, other times I would bring my vulnerability of my personal self to work, and that was uncomfortable because all of a sudden I had feelings and emotions, and sometimes I needed to, sort of put my corporate face on and deal with, ridiculous things at times. And over time, thankfully, I've learned that those should be one person, and I have found a way to have a genuine self that I'm bringing to a work environment, which is what one of the many things I'm thrilled about at this point in my personal and professional evolution. But especially when I was struggling with how to relate those 2 different people that I was trying to be, that concept of remembering rule number 6 was really helpful for me. And once I heard that story, and just a slap in the face to not take myself so seriously, because most of the time when I was getting really worked up about something, I remember I would get home and I would be telling my wife about some issue that I'd run into with a management meeting or with a market event or something. And she would always give me this sort of look. She was always very supportive and would hear me out, but I could see as I was just articulating it to her, even in my own head, I'd be thinking, boy, this doesn't seem like it should be that big of a deal, right? But it is. I was so worked up about it. And it's always been a good reminder for me to not get so worked up about things that I should not get so worked up about. And it's so easy to lose focus of that and to get very passionate and very angry or upset or anxious or nervous or excited or despondent based on something that's in front of you right then, right? It's a natural human reaction to an uncomfortable moment. So I actually wrote RR number 6 on a little piece of paper, and I taped it to my monitor that day when I first heard that story. And I still have it taped to a monitor in my office. I actually have it hanging up on my wall over there. You can't see it off camera, but I've always had it somewhere within sight of any work sort of thing that I'm doing. And it's for that reason. It's just to be as a constant reminder, the moment I start feeling my heart rate increase or my palms sweat or my blood start to boil because of something going on that should not be as important as I'm trying to make it at that moment, that quick salutation, that RR number 6, remember rule number 6, reminds me of that story and to not take myself so seriously. So my question for you today, watching this video, what is something that you have faced in the last 24 hours, last 48 hours, that if you had remembered rule number 6, you probably wouldn't have made it as big of a deal as you did? How can you remind yourself to not take things so seriously? And again, I should caution you, this does not mean to not take your responsibilities seriously and have an appropriate level of attention and prioritization for things that are very important. I'm sure in your work life and in your personal life, you have very important responsibilities. You may be managing money for clients, in which case you have an incredibly, a fiduciary responsibility to do what's in their best interest. And that this does not minimize the importance of those things. What it should do is it's your mindset. You can be productive and effective and a good fiduciary and a good human being and a good father and mother and parent and son or daughter and partner and whatever other roles, employee, employer that you need to be, and have an appropriate mindset that allows you to be fulfilled and enjoy the journey as you're doing that. So for me, that's what remember rule number 6 means. It's to take myself and my responsibilities not more seriously than they need to be. So again, my question to you, what's an example of something recently that where you could or should have remembered rule number 6?